Sticking with the election campaign, economists have warned that the campaign has turned into a dangerous spending competition between the major parties, with both Labor and the Coalition bribing voters with schemes worth billions of dollars as their otherwise lacklustre campaigns fail to gain traction. And Patrick, there are growing fears that competing election promises on housing in particular are tinkering while our creaking system lurches towards collapse. That's a direct quote. We can ill afford this sort of spendathon, can we? We've got inflationary pressures to consider and record debt.
That's right. Somebody worked out that if you added together the cost of these proposals by Labor and the Coalition, you're looking at $24 billion between them for something that economists say is not going to work. These measures are not going to make it easier for first home buyers. It's just going to push up the price of houses. And these are bribes. Basically, we're looking at a campaign at the moment that is very much aimed at anyone under the age of 30.
Yeah.
You've got young voters for the first time, and it has become this spendathon. Like, what are the best bribes we can bring for young people to get them to vote for us? And we're not being at all well served. I mean, the big issues facing Australia are not being discussed, much less debated.
What's in this campaign for, say, over 55s? You look at the focus does seem to be overwhelmingly on those younger voters.
Absolutely, and these aren't good policies. These aren't actually going to fix the world. These are just bribes to actually get young voters to vote for them. And look, the Teals are doing it, the Greens are going to make everything free from the sound of it. Everything's free if you're under the age of 30. And we're not being well served. And there's certainly very little for anyone who's older, who has paid their way, who has paid their taxes. They have been sort of forgotten in this whole campaign so far.
Now, let's switch to the Victorian Liberals, who are very slow learners indeed. The Herald Sun's reporting that multiple candidates will be challenging Moira Deeming's #1 position on the Western Metropolitan Upper House ticket when pre-selection begins. It's going to be happening shortly after the federal election. There is a plot by Liberal operatives to end Moira Deeming's political career with the Liberal Party. Patrick, she is one of the most popular, one of the most effective and recognisable Liberals in this state. There aren't too many of them. Why are they so desperate to unseat her?
Look, the Libs haven't had any sniff of power since 2014. At the moment, as a Victorian, we are subjected to the worst government in my lifetime. Victorians just want to boot out Jacinta Allen. A head of lettuce would get elected ahead of Jacinta Allen tomorrow. But the Liberals at the same time are too busy fighting themselves. They haven't actually been a credible alternative for more than a decade. And now this Moira Deeming business, it should have been resolved in a day, maybe 2 days, but instead we had a defamation case. We saw the opposition leader, John Pesciuto, knocked out as a consequence of that. They're too busy fighting themselves. And we are actually being poorly served by an opposition that is too busy fighting with itself.
And I have said all along, one of the reasons we've had such a poor government in this state is that we've got such a poor opposition. They haven't held them to account, and here we are. Now, finally, Patrick, we're talking about the Greens. Let's meet one of their candidates. Meet Avery Howard, the Greens candidate for Fowler. Goes by they, them pronouns, of course he does. Self-described queer anti-poverty advocate and retail worker. Avery has signed up to an Australian Palestinian advocacy network initiative and vowed to support a complete and permanent ceasefire in Gaza and all sorts of other anti-Israeli policies, an end to Israel's blockade on Gaza, illegal occupation and apartheid, targeted sanctions and an arms embargo against Israel, many other things. I thought this was parody when I saw that. I mean, the level of ignorance to be advocating for a regime that would literally kill you. I mean, you would not go into Gaza looking like that with Hamas in charge. You wouldn't even go into the West Bank looking like that.
That's off the charts. It's an affront to truth and to decency, and it's totally wrong. And it's getting more and more offensive.
Absolutely. Patrick, Carlyon, thank you for your time tonight.